The next author I'm thrilled to present to you is Linda Morinello. Linda Morinello is a local author and wellness practitioner who transformed her life after being diagnosed with and moving beyond cancer. Conscious Living Through Cancer is an important guide that will help anyone living with cancer and their caregivers to find purpose and hope through the illness. Her gentle guidance in this book has helped hundreds of people find a way to cope using simple, proven skills and techniques. This book will help you begin a journey of self-discovery that will lead you to your most authentic self. Please welcome Linda.
Thanks very much. Hello everyone, thank you so much. So my name is Linda, and I'm really thrilled to present my book to you, Conscious Living Through Cancer. Interestingly, when we were asked to talk about what inspired us to write the book, I mean, it's kind of sort of like a duh moment. I mean, obviously it was about cancer, but what really inspired me to write, I think, was something that I started when I was really young. I did a lot of journaling. And when I was diagnosed with cancer and started my treatments, a lot of my friends, and they knew I liked to write, so they kindly gave me lots of journals. So I had, some that were very practical looking with lots of lines, and others that had, artwork and, nice sayings and quotes and things like that. But really all I did when I was going through my treatments was journaling. I knew I had a book in me, probably from when I was quite young, but I didn't know it was going to be this book. And it wasn't a book that came out right away. I wrote this book about 5 years post-treatment, and really it was because there was a whole process of learning and growth and realizations that happened for me, as it does with all of us when we're going through any sort of an illness, a crisis, a life-changing event. I mean, there's all these sort of things that happen that help us to understand what happened to us, where we are today, and so on. So I thought what I would do is read a few little sort of paragraphs from the book, and each one of them, or sections, they sort of talk about some of the things that I've learned through this experience, and there's a lot more, and I continue to learn, but these are 3 things. I have to put my Shoppers Drug Mart cheaters on to read. Okay, so the first thing I learned, or one of the learnings, is that healing happens, but it doesn't always look the way we think it does. So this is from a section in the book called My Story. Did I do cancer wrong? This was a question I asked often during my treatment for non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. From those first moments I spent in a hospital bed speaking with doctors, to how I spent my days during my treatment, to my post-treatment fall of appointments, I never felt that I fit the mold of how to have cancer. Did I do cancer wrong? What I noticed is that I didn't have the same reaction as most people. It didn't feel like a crisis to me. It didn't feel like a sentence, no tears, no anger, no why me. In a sense, I knew deep inside that my response to having this disease was right. Not right in the sense of right or wrong, but rather in being true. True for me, true for my growth, true for my healing. I understood that cancer was a catalyst for change, growth, and healing. I also knew that in whatever manner I went through it, I was honoring myself. Looking back pre-cancer, I was intrigued by stories of how other people I knew or knew of handled this illness. Of course, I always asked the question, if it were me, how would I handle it? I asked the question never expecting that I would need to find an answer. I guess it's like how I always wondered what my reaction would be if I came upon a traumatic situation, such as witnessing a car accident. Would I fall to the ground and cry, or would I call 911 and then run over and help, fully composed? What I have learned is that until you're in it, you don't know. You cannot really imagine it. I suppose if it were a play and I had the role of a person who was diagnosed, I would likely research, imagine, rehearse, and then act it out. But this was not pretend, it was real. and I somehow had to figure it out. But a funny thing happened in the beginning. An instinct took over, and I knew. I knew how to act, knew what to say, knew who to speak with, and knew what to believe. It was subtle, but I listened to that instinct and knew that I would do it right. And this isn't something I could have researched as a role and then rehearsed. Even if someone had shared with me the most intimate details of their own story, I could not have played that part, because we are organic and different. I couldn't possibly imagine how that would feel. Each of us brings to every situation our own ideas, history, and experiences. I could only have cancer in my own way in the moment. So that's the first point. The second thing I learned is that automatically we become authentically who we are. And I want to share a story that I work with many cancer patients since having had cancer. There's a woman whose name in the book is Sarah, that's not her real name. And I want to share her story with you. From the moment I heard the words, "You have cancer," my eyes welled up with tears and they began to flow down my cheeks. Every memory from my life and moment that I lived flashed across my mind. I was aware of all of it. Something took over and the floodgates opened. I understood on some level that a transformation was beginning, but it felt so big and I was so overwhelmed that I released it all in that instant. I came here from another country and was a young woman during a time when women were considered mostly to bear children and keep a good home. When I met and married Frederick, I knew that my life would be different. He was kind, quiet, and genuinely interested in me, not only as a wife, but as a woman. We had a good life together. It was modest, but we managed to raise our children, gave them an education and all of the things they needed. We spent our years together, as most couples do, in our community, socializing, friends and family, celebrating anniversaries, holidays, birthdays. At that moment of diagnosis, sitting in the doctor's office, in a flash, each of those memories appeared in my mind. It was like I could recall each one, and I relived them in an instant. I felt every feeling I had during those moments: joy and love, laughter and sadness, pain and loss. I wondered what it all meant now. How would this diagnosis fit into the lives of people around me, and would it change the memories? After hearing the diagnosis from my doctor, he excused himself, and Frederick and I sat still for a moment. When my tears kept flowing, Frederick was at a loss. He didn't know what to say. And I think he said what most people would say: "It'll be okay, don't cry, don't worry." But I needed those tears. Crying helped me to feel real. The tears were also for so many times in my life where I wanted to cry but I didn't. I realized that I needed to let them out in order for the healing to begin. I didn't want to stop the tears from flowing. Healing for me wasn't just about the surgery. It was a process of allowing, of honoring myself. Later, when Frederick asked me if I felt sad about my situation, I told him that I didn't. The tears weren't about regret or fear, but rather I felt that there was a cleansing taking place. After reassuring him that I was okay, we gathered my protocol and information from the doctor and left the appointment with the plan in hand. All through having cancer, I continued to allow the tears to flow whenever I needed them. For fear of alarming Frederick, I didn't let him see me, or anyone else for that matter, but I cried. And afterward, I always felt better, empty in a good way, and somehow that allowed me to feel happier because I made room inside for happiness. So that is automatically becoming our authentic self. And the last point I want to mention in what I learned is actually in the book it's titled, "After All, I'm Connected." So this is about really finding our spiritual connection, whether we had it at the beginning and didn't know we had it, or whether we just discover it. It's all about being connected. The statement above says it all. After all, I'm connected. It says that I knew it was enough, would feed me throughout, would enable me to feel calm, and was what I knew to be true. that the connection I had would help me to serve both myself and then others. There is a comfort that comes with feeling connected to someone or something, somewhere where we find strength, peace, and acceptance. And then it goes on to say, when I was diagnosed, I referred to the cancer as a gift. It felt natural and right to say those words, for I fully believed it to be true. I knew in that moment of diagnosis that having cancer was going to help me. I was going to learn what my purpose was, how I was able to handle a crisis, teach me humility, learn what my body could handle, and understand emotional pain. This can sound a bit scary, but many of us know that it is through the difficult moments that we become strong and learn our biggest lessons. I also knew that I was going to need someone else to lean on. It is beyond helpful to have a friend, a spouse, a family member that is there for you. It was a wonderful help to me having my husband's support and friends and family nearby that cared and called and visited. But I needed something else in addition to the people that I knew. I needed strength that went beyond the people around me. For me, I found that strength in my connection. And then it continues. So these are just a few points about what I learned for myself, what I learned from other people that have gone through it, whether they're patients or they're family members or caregivers. And I've kind of put it all together in this little book, and actually it's a friend of mine calls it a how-to book. It's how to have cancer, how to get through it. So it's written in a way, it's just got a few little paragraphs here and there, just things that you can sort of open up, read a couple of pages, and get some sort of inspiration, and put it down and just kind of mull it over and sort of see how that resonates for you. So that is my book, Conscious Living Through Cancer.